Hi guys, welcome to the next part of the AMP tutorial slash guide. So today we're going to be looking at unwrapping. So there's a few things I want to go over just before I let you crack on and listen to the tutorial. So if you noticed on the time lapse there, one of the first things I tend to do is split off the things that I'm going to unwrap with the things that I'm not. So I tend to use a red material to highlight the things that I'm not going to unwrap. So things like the dials, for example, all the dials are the same. You only need to unwrap one of those dials. It doesn't really make any sort of sense to unwrap them all. So we'll unwrap one of them and then we'll copy and paste them back into place afterwards. So that way we can keep them overlapped. We can keep things nice and optimized, and we don't have to do as much work, which is always nice. So that's what I tend to do at the start. Decide what I'm going to unwrap and what I'm not going to. So that would be step one. After that, we move into the unwrapping phase itself. So there's a few things I want to go over, just some things to consider as you are unwrapping. So first of all, we want you to be working in as optimal way as possible. So you want to overlap as much as physically possible. So overlap as much as you can. That makes sense, obviously. So things like all of the dials can be overlapped, all of the ports, if they are the same, they can all be overlapped. The corner caps, you don't want to be overlapping top to bottom, because you can do some fancy stuff with gradients there to get a bit nice effect in substance. But from left to right, you can definitely overlap them. I wouldn't overlap any of the main shell of the mesh, because we want to be able to give that some form of roughness variation, some form, maybe a bit of dirt, a bit of grime, something like that. And we don't want that to be symmetried over, for example. Also, this amp has got a patterned leather texture to it, so we want to try and make sure there's no symmetry lines anywhere, nothing's being overlapped, etc. So we can keep that looking nice and uniform. So few more things. There is also the case of, so in some places throughout this time lapse, you will see that I've actually collapsed this unwrap modifier, gone into the edit poly, and made some changes to the mesh. Sometimes it's worth going below, adding in a couple of cuts in certain places where you would like a UV seam to be. So I tend to try stuff off sometimes and just basically make texturing as easy as possible and try and hide the seams in as best way as I can. So that's something that you'll pick up the more you do it. So another thing I want to discuss is scale and textile density. So as a general rule, anything that has the same material needs to be the same scale on your texture. So for example, all the leather needs to be the same scale. All your plastic needs to be at the same scale. All your grills need to be at the same scale. So anything that has the same material to it, the same pattern material, has to be at the same scale. Okay, so that's just so if you don't have some areas of the model that have got a small grain on the leather, and some areas of the model that have got a large grain on the leather. Makes it easier if everything's the same scale, so you can just put leather on there and it will be the same scale across everywhere, and it'll be all uniform and you don't have to worry about it. However, saying that, there are certain areas of your unwrap that you are going to want larger. So for example, the front and back panels, the panels that have got all the text on them, they are going to have to be fairly large on your unwrap. So you'll see mine towards the end of this time lapse, but my panels stretch from one side of the texture all the way to the other side. When you're working with text and you don't have a separate decal sheet, you need to make sure that you're giving enough resolution to be able to add text. Because if the text doesn't come out crisp, it's gonna destroy the realism of the project. So you want to try and make sure the text can be as crisp as possible. So give it as much room on the texture sheet as possible. So that will make it disproportionately large when compared to the other UV islands, but that's fine. Don't worry about it. You want it large; it will benefit you massively later on. Okay. Also, things such as the handle. So the handle, we have a lot of normal information that's being baked onto the handle, a lot of intricate normal information. So I would be tempted to give that a little bit of a boost as well. I do give it a boost in resolution throughout this towards the end of this time lapse as well, just because I know that it's going to require lots of. It's mainly just that top section. So if you want to make that top section a little bit bigger than usual, that might be the way to go. But again, have a play, see what you think. But for now, I'm keeping the entire handle a little bit higher than the rest of it. And same with the dials as well. The dials have got a lot of normal information on, so I've give those a little bit of a boost on the unwrap as well. So what you'll see me doing here on the unwrap is I'm attaching everything together. So basically what this does is once you attach everything together, you can use the rescale function in the UV editor. If you don't have everything attached to the same object, the rescale function will not work. I've not found a way around this. If anybody does know a way around this, feel free to let me know. But if you try and use the rescale, if you basically have 15 objects selected, and then you put an unwrap modifier on them all, and then you try and rescale, it won't rescale. It will only rescale in relation to the object, not in relation to all 15 objects. So you have to attach all of them to get the scale uniform. So make sure you do that before you rescale. Otherwise, you will not. Otherwise, it won't be rescaled properly. Okay. Another feature, you'll notice that the majority of my assets, the majority of my UV islands are all perfectly straight, or as straight as possible. Use the align to edge feature in 3ds Max. If you look in the top right of the screen at the moment, it is in the quick transform panel underneath the checker pattern logo in the top right corner. It is the option that is grayed out at the moment. So if you select an edge and then select the option that's grayed out, it will straighten the whole UV island for you. So that's another little trick that I tend to use to keep everything nice and uniform. So also manually pack. Don't auto pack. Auto packing is incredibly inefficient and it's very lazy as well. You don't need to. It doesn't take too long to pack a UVs like this. And also just pack everything as well as you can. You can mess with the scale of everything later and get things to fit tighter. I end up with a fairly tight unwrap by the time this is done. But that's mainly because there's a little clip at the end of this time lapse where I forgot to pack the handle, and I had to fit that in towards the end as well. So you'll see a little bit of that on the end. But that's all I want to say. That's everything from me in terms of this part. The next part we'll be looking over prepping our asset for a bake and actually baking it as well, and then dealing with any of the issues and the fallout from that. So as you can see at the moment here, I've just moved those. They are the back and the front panel, so they are quite large on the unwrap. I made those very large so we can support the texture resolution. But yeah, that's it from this part. I'll chuck some music on and I'll let you enjoy the rest of this time lapse. If you've got any questions on this, fire me a message on Teams, and hopefully the next part will be with you before the end of the week.